Time for us to get started here on this first day of the 10th month. And based on our reckoning of the calendar, it is the 42nd year of the 40th Jubilee. Quickly bringing this 40th Jubilee to a close. So if you all stand, I would like to kick services off by asking James if he would please open in prayer. So if you all stand, we'll turn the mic over to James. James, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Our Father, our Maker, Maker of all, Provider of everything, we give you the greatest appreciation and thanks that you've given us the ability to know that you are one alone. There is none other. Although most of mankind does not know you, we appreciate the discernment we've been given to know who you are, what your will is for what you've created. Told us that we can know you. There is no Savior before you. You are the Creator and the Savior of all. That we are required actually to know both you and your will. Which would mean all of your law applied in a correct fashion with a correct practical application. So we give you thanks for all this knowledge. We appreciate the fact that we've been faced with the Antichrist, who's coming with more and more of his lies and deceptions, in fact, that we're having put upon us, affecting all of mankind's health and wealth. If only they would obey you, they would see the fruits of obeying you. But seemingly they don't or can't. It affects our health and our wealth, our families, with the divorces and division and infertility, and now in this modern time, this gender confusion, which I had never formerly seen, with GMOs being put upon us to make us sick. And in fact, the goal of Satan may well be to destroy everything that you've made, including us. So we'll make it our best efforts to live the way you've given to us, shown us, eat foods that are beneficial, be careful of what may be falsely called medicine, that in fact makes you sick. So we are skeptical to a degree with everything the powers in this age tell us and put upon us. We know they're led by the father of lies. So please help us be able to discern correctly right from wrong. Is to be good ambassadors, to use the correct words when we're addressing anybody, so we can speak with them in a way that they can understand, and we're never seen to be part of the confusion. So we give you thanks for life. We give you thanks for everything. And we ask that we all are given peace of mind in all of our actions as we try to do our best to be good ambassadors of your way. We ask for this, please, by the authority of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen to that. Thank you, James. Appreciate that as always. If you'll please remain standing and take up your hymnals and open them up to page 80. On page 80, we'll sing our opening hymn, which comes from Psalm 104, titled, O Bless and Praise Yah. That's page 80, O Bless and Praise Yah, to open our song service today. Okay, well, that was a good start to our song service. If you'll now turn over a few pages to page 86. On page 86, we'll sing our second hymn, which comes from Psalm 114. It's titled, When Israel Out of Egypt Went. That's Psalm 114, or page 86 from Psalm 114. When Israel Out of Egypt Went. After which we'll have the reading of Scripture, and Wes isn't with us today, so Jerry, if you wouldn't mind the impromptu request to read in the book of 1 Samuel chapters 7 through 9, after we sing page 86, When Israel Out of Egypt Went. Okay, looks like Wes is joining us. So we'll, shalom, Wes. Just in time to read the scriptures for us. If you would, please read 1 Samuel chapters 7 through 9.
Okay, let's see what I got. Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Chapter 7. The Philistines subdue at Mizpah. It was a long time, 20 years in all, that the ark remained at Kira, Jearim, and all the people of Israel mourned and sought after the Lord. And Samuel said to the whole house of Israel, if you are to remain to the Lord with all your heart, then rid yourself of the foreign gods and Ashtaroth, and commit yourself to the Lord and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines. So the Israelites put away their Baal and Ashtaroth and served the Lord only. And Samuel said, assemble all Israel at Mizpah, and I will intercede with the Lord for you. When they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. One day they fasted, and there they confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel was leader of Israel at Mizpah. When the Philistines heard that Israel had assembled at Mizpah, the rulers of the Philistines came up to attack them. And when the Israelites heard of it, they were afraid because of the Philistines. And they said to Samuel, do not stop crying out to the Lord our God for us, that he may rescue us from the hand of the Philistines. Then Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it up as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. He cried out to the Lord on Israel's behalf, and the Lord answered him while Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering. And the Philistines drew near to engage Israel into battle. But that day, the Lord thundered with the loud thunder against the Philistines and threw them into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. The men of Israel rushed out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and slaughtered them along the way to a point below Bethkar. I'm losing my place. Wait a minute. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen. He named it Ebenezer, saying, thus far has the Lord helped us. So the Philistines were subdued and did not invade Israel's territory again. Throughout Samuel's lifetime, the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines. The house of Ekton to Gad that the Philistines had captured from Israel were restored to her, and Israel delivered the neighboring territories from the power of the Philistines, and there was peace between Israel and the Ammonites. Samuel continued as judge over Israel all the days of his life. From year to year, he went on a circuit from Bethel to Gilgal to Mizpah, judging Israel in all those places. But he always went back to Ramoth, where his home was, and there he also judged Israel. And he built an altar there to the Lord. Israel asked for a king. Chapter 8. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside from dishonoring gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramoth. And they said, "You are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint us a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all the people are saying to you, it is not you that they have rejected as their king, but me, as they have done from the days I brought them out of Egypt until this day. Forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solely and let them know what the kings who will reign over you will do." Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the kings who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and his horsemen, and they will run in front of his chariot. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and hundreds and fifties, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards and your olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your manservants and your maidservants and the best of your cattle and your donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourself will become, got to turn the page here, slaves. When the day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us, and we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. And when Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. And the Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. Then Samuel said to the men of Israel, everyone go back to his town. Samuel anoints Saul. Chapter 9. Then there was a Benjaminite, a man of standing, whose name was Cush, son of Abel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, the son of Ephathah, a Benjaminite. He had a son named Samuel, an impressive young man without equal among the Israelites, a head taller than any of the others. Now the donkey belonging to Samuel's father Kish was lost. And Cush said to his son Saul, take one of the servants with you and go and look for the donkey. So he passed through the hill country of Ephraim and through the area around the Shalisha, but they did not find them. They went on into the district of Shalim, but the donkeys were not there. Then he passed through the territory of Benjamin, but they did not find him then. When they reached the district of Zuppa, Saul said to his servant who was with him, "Come, let us go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkey and start worrying about us." But the servant replied, "Look, in this town there is a man of God. He is highly respected, and everything he says comes true. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us what way to take." So Saul said to his servants, "If we go, what can we give the man? The food in our sack is gone. We have no gift to take to the man of God. What do we do?" And the servant answered him again. "Look," he said, "I have a quarter of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God so that he will tell us what way to take." Formerly in Israel, if a man went to inquire of God, he would say, "Come, let us go see the seer," because the prophet of today used to be called a seer. "Good," Samuel said to his servant. Not Samuel, Saul. Saul said, "Come, let us go." So that they set out for the town where the man of God was. As they were going up the hill to the town, they met some girls coming out to draw water. And they asked them, "Is the seer here?" "He is," they answered. "His head ahead of you. Hurry now, he is just come to our town today, for the people have a sacrifice at a high place. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. The people will not begin eating until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterwards, those who are invited will eat. Go up now. You should find him about this time." They went up to the town, and as they were entering it, there was Samuel coming toward them on his way to the high place. Now, the day before Samuel came, the day before Samuel came, why I keep saying it? It's the day before Saul came. The Lord had revealed this to Samuel. "About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin, anointing him leader over all my people Israel. He will deliver my people from the hands of the Philistines. I have looked upon my people, for their cry has reached me." And when Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, "This is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people." So Saul approached Samuel in the gateway and asked, "Would you please tell me where the seer's house is?" He says, "I am the seer," Samuel replied. "Go up ahead of me to the high place, for today you are to eat with me. In the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that is in your heart. As for the donkey you lost 3 days ago, do not worry about them. They have been found, and to whom is all the desires of Israel turned is not to you and all your father's family." Saul answered, "But am I not a Benjaminite from the smallest tribe of Israel? And is not my clan the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me?" Then Samuel brought Saul and his servants into the hall and seated them at the head of those who were invited, about 30 in number. Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the piece of meat I gave you, the one I told you to lay aside." So the cook took up the leg with what was on it and set it in front of Saul. Samuel said, "Here is what I have kept for you. Eat, because it was set aside for you for this occasion. From the time I said I have invited guests, and then Saul dined with Samuel that day. After they came down from the high places to the town, Samuel talked with Saul on the roof of his house. They rose about daybreak, and Samuel called to Saul on the roof, "Get ready, and I will send you on your way." And when Saul got ready, he and Samuel went outside together. As they were going down to the edge of the town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go on ahead of us." And the servant did so. "But you stay here a while so that I may give you a message from God." That'd make you tremble, wouldn't it? Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Wes. Appreciate that as always. It's, Israel was warned what these kings would do. And when you look around at the world today, that little prophecy has come true in spades. We are a people enslaved, and we live in this illusion of freedom that is, for the most part, a giant deception. And it's so, the deception, I think, is so deep we can't even really fathom it or understand it. So it's really quite amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for reading that. If you'll now please stand one more time, take up your hymnals. We'll sing our next hymn, which is one of my favorites. It's found on page 90. Comes from Psalm 119, titled, "Oh, How Love I Thy Law," after which I'll be back with the main message, which is a message I recorded some years ago, and it's basically just a word study on the new moon. Since we do have some new followers that are following our material, I thought it would be good to get this recorded and put up on the YouTube site. They do use that material, so I thought it would be beneficial for them. So hopefully it'll be a refresher for us and something, maybe will trigger some additional thoughts about it. Anyway, first we'll sing page 90, "Oh, How Love I Thy Law." Okay, if you'll all be seated, we'll now have our main message, which was pre-recorded a few years ago, titled simply New Moon Word Study. So we'll play that now. You'll find your seats. We'll be back afterward. So I went through eSword. I looked up all of the verses that contained first in terms of month and first day of the month, new moon, months. So trying to cover all my bases. And what I came up with was about 7 pages of verses. You know, some of them I'm reading a little bit of the passage to get context. But I thought it would be an interesting review just to go through these, because actually when I was going through them, some of the questions that I've heard raised, it seemed like there were answers in some of these scriptures. So hopefully you guys will find it useful. A lot of it's just review of things you already know, but as we all know, we learn through repetition, and that's how things get firmed up in our minds. And hopefully there will be some new insight that comes out of it. All right, so the first verse is in Genesis 8, and we'll read verses 2 through 5, and I'll give you guys a moment to either turn in your Bibles or click in eSword to get to the right place. But it's Genesis 8, verses 2 through 5. It says here, the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. Now this is obviously in reference to the flood. So it says, the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountain of Ararat. The waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So here we have an event that occurs on the new moon, the first day of the 10th month. The waters abated and the tops of the mountains were seen. And as you'll see, that basically what you're going to find in this study is there are significant events that happened on the new moons, and then there's information about how the new moons were observed and what the new moon is. Turning over now to Genesis 8, 12 through 13, skip down a little bit in chapter 8 there. We'll read verses 12 and 13. It says, then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him anymore. In the 601st year, so in year 601, in the first month, on the first day of the month, on the new moon, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. So here we have again on the new moon a significant, and this is the first month. So this is New Year's Day, right? Everything is new. It's a new beginning. On the first month, the first day of the month, in the new moon, the earth was dry, and Noah removed the covering of the ark. Another very significant event in human history. Now let's turn over to Exodus 12. So Exodus 12, verses 1 through 2. Starting in verse 1 says, and Yehovah said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. So here Yehovah establishes the new year with Moses and Aaron. But obviously, you know, he didn't just create that out of thin air. It was observed in the time of Noah, as we saw. So that was Exodus 12, 1 through 2. Now let's turn over a few pages to Exodus 19, verses 1 through 16. Exodus 19, verses 1 through 16. On the third new moon, after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. So in the third month, on the new moon, they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. Then Israel encamped before the mountain, while Moses went up to Elohim. And it says,
Jehovah called to him out of the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words that Jehovah had commanded him. All the people answered together and said, All that Jehovah has spoken we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people to Jehovah. And Jehovah said to Moses, Behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may also believe you forever. When Moses told the words of the people to Jehovah, Jehovah said to Moses, Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Let them wash their garments and be ready for the third day. For on the third day, Jehovah will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. And you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, Take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments, and he said to the people, Be ready for the third day. Do not go near a woman. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightnings, and a thick cloud on the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people in the camp trembled. So here we have a new moon in the third month at Sinai, Jehovah establishing Israel as a holy nation and a kingdom of priests, as long as they obeyed his covenant. So another, again, very significant event for Israel, for all humanity, actually. Was it Exodus 41 through 2? It says, Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, On the first day of the first month you shall erect the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. And then over in verse 17 of Exodus 40, it says, In the first month, in the second year, on the first day of the month, the tabernacle was erected. So here we have the tabernacle being erected on the new month, on the new moon, the first day of the first month, and then of the second year it was erected. A lot of significant things happening on the new moon of the new month, or of the new year, sorry. And then in Leviticus 23:24, it says, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, In the seventh month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe a day of solemn rest, a memorial proclaimed with the blast of trumpets, a holy convocation. Now, this is kind of a dual significance, because it's not only a new moon, but it's also the Feast of Trumpets, or the Day of Trumpets. It's got kind of a dual significance. Then in Numbers chapter 1, verse 1, Numbers chapter 1, verse 1 says, Jehovah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting on the first day of the second month in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying. So here we have the tabernacle was erected, as we saw, in the second month of the second year, and after that, Jehovah spoke with Moses in the tent of meeting. Or it could have been the angel of Jehovah. Numbers 1, verses 18 and 19. It says, On the first day of the second month, they assembled the whole congregation together, who registered themselves by clans, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names, and 20 years old and upward, head by head, as Jehovah commanded Moses. So he listed them in the wilderness of Sinai. So here we have the tribes being assembled and registering every person. There was a census taken. It was ordered by Jehovah to be done, and they did it. And everyone was registered by their own tribes. So this was the same event where Yehovah came and spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting in verse 1. Now turning over into chapter 9 of Numbers, we'll read verses 1 through 3 of chapter 9. Numbers 9 verses 1 through 3 says, And Yehovah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month on the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the people of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time on the 14th day of this month at twilight. You shall keep it at its appointed time. According to all its statutes and all its rules, you shall keep it. So here again, you have a major thing. You have the Passover being established again with the people of Israel on this new moon. Numbers 10:10. Chapter 10 of the book of Numbers, verse 10, it says, On the day of your gladness also, and at your appointed feasts, and at the beginnings of your months, you shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings. They shall be a reminder of you before your God, before your Elohim. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. So here we have a command to blow the trumpets over the burnt offerings on the appointed feasts and the new moons, the beginnings of your months, which is the new moon. Turning over to chapter 28 of Numbers. Chapter 28, it says in verses 11 through 14, At the beginnings of your months, or at the new moon, you shall offer a burnt offering to Yehovah, 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old without blemish, also 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with oil for each bull, and 2/10 of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with oil for the 1 ram. And 1/10 of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for every lamb, for a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma, a food offering to Yehovah. Their drink offering shall be a half a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 of a hin for a ram, and 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. This is the burnt offering of each month throughout the months of the year. So here we have specific offerings being made on the new moon. So it was set aside as a special offering on the new moon, which was different than the Sabbath, the holy days, and every day of the year. And in one chapter over, in chapter 29, we'll read verses 1 through 6. It says, On the first day of the 7th month, so here we have the Day of Trumpets, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work. It is a day for you to blow the trumpets. And you shall offer a burnt offering for a pleasing aroma to Yehovah, 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old without blemish. Also their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, with 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for you. Besides the burnt offering of the new moon, and its grain offering, and the regular burnt offering and its grain offering, and their drink offering according to the rule for them for a pleasing aroma, a food offering to Yehovah. So this was in addition to the normal new moon offerings that we see in verse 6. Turning now over to chapter 33 of the book of Numbers, we'll read 33-38. Verse 38 of Numbers 33. It says, And Aaron, the priest, went up Mount Hor at the command of Yehovah and died there in the 40th year after the people of Israel came out of the land of Egypt on the first day of the 5th month. So here we have Aaron, the first high priest, from whose lineage the high priesthood came. He died on the new moon of the 5th month. And it appears that Yehovah said, hey, go up to the mountain and die. So he did. But it's significant that, these things are happening on the day of the new moon. A day that almost nobody keeps as a sacred day as a sanctified time period. And I believe that it's something we should do. Turning over now to Deuteronomy 1, 3 through 4. It says, in the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses spoke to the people of Israel according to all that Jehovah had given him in commandment to them. After he had defeated Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth and at Edrei. So here we have Moses speaking to the people of Israel all that Jehovah had commanded them, right? So it's a reiteration of the law happening in the 40th year on the first day of the 11th month. So this was about 6 months after Aaron had passed away. We'll turn over now to 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5. David said to Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit at table with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. So here's just evidence that obviously they knew when the new moon was. He knew that tomorrow. David and Jonathan both knew that tomorrow was the new moon. And David had knew that he would be missed at the table if he wasn't there. And then over in verse 18 of that same chapter, it says, then Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed because your seat will be empty. So I don't know if there was a special dinner on the new moon or what, but it's very obvious that they both knew when the new moon was. It wasn't a question. They weren't waiting for someone to light a signal fire telling them that the new moon had come. They knew when it was, which is, at least to some degree, supporting evidence that the conjunction is the correct way to keep the new moon. When turning over to verses 24 and 25 of 1 Samuel 20, it says, so David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat, as at other times, on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. And then in verse 27, it says, but on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty, and Saul said to Jonathan his son, why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today? So here we have, these meals are extending into at least the second day, so I'm not sure if, there was a special meal on the new moon or how that was working, but that's something we'll have to delve into a little more, I guess. And now over in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 22 through 23. It says, then she called to her husband and said, send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, that I may quickly go to the man of God, man of Elohim, and come back again. And he said, why will you go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. She said, all is well. So here we have, obviously, her husband was saying, hey, why are you going to see the priest or the man of Elohim, man of God, when it's not a new moon or a Sabbath? So obviously going to consult with the spiritual leaders was something that was done on the new moon and on the Sabbath. And now over in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 3 through 5. 2 Chronicles 29, 3 through 5. It says, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, he opened the doors of the house of Jehovah and repaired them. He brought in the priests, the Levites, and assembled them in the square on the east, and said to them, hear me, Levites, now consecrate yourselves, and consecrate the house of Jehovah, Jehovah, the Elohim of your fathers, and carry out the filth from the holy place. So this talks about the first month, but doesn't necessarily say that it was the first day of the month. But if you look now at verse 17, it says they began to consecrate themselves, or consecrate on the first day of the first month, and on the 8th day of the month they came to the vestibule of Jehovah. Then for 8 days they consecrated the house of Jehovah and on the 16th day of the first month they finished. So here we have the temple being consecrated on the first day of the first month. So they started on the first day of the first month, and they went until the 16th day of the first month, which obviously is past the 14th day of the first month. So they did not quite make it in terms of being ready for Passover. Turning over now to Ezra 3, Ezra 3, verses 4 through 6. It says, "And they kept the Feast of Booths as it is written, and offered the daily burnt offerings by number according to the rule as each day required. And after that, the regular burnt offerings, the offerings of the new moon, and at all the appointed feasts of Yehovah, and the offerings of everyone who made a freewill offering to Yehovah. From the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to Yehovah, but the foundation of the temple of Yehovah was not yet laid." So here again starts out with Feast of Trumpets, but it talks about, and after the regular burnt offerings, the offerings at the new moon and at the appointed feasts of Yehovah. So there were special offerings, as I said earlier, on the new moons. And over in Ezra chapter 7, verses 8 through 9, it says, "And Ezra came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. For on the first day of the first month he began to go up from Babylonia, and on the first day of the 5th month he came to Jerusalem, for the good hand of Elohim was on him." So here we have Ezra going back to Jerusalem, and it took him 5 months. From the first day of the first month he started traveling, and then on the first day of the 5th month he arrives. And then over on in chapter 10 of Ezra, verses 16 through 17, "Then the returned exiles did so. Ezra the priest selected men, heads of fathers' houses, according to their fathers' houses, each of them designated by name. On the first day of the 10th month they sat down to examine the matter. And by the first day of the first month they had come to the end of all the men who had married foreign women." So again, they were sorting out the population and trying to figure out who was who and who had foreign wives and the bloodlines and all that. But it was all happening on the first day of the first month in the new moon. And turn over into Nehemiah 8, verses 1 through 2. It says, "And all the people gathered as one man into the square before the water gate, and they told Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses that Yehovah had commanded Israel. So Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly, both men and women, all who could understand what they heard on the first day of the 7th month." So again, you have this is the day of trumpets, the first day of the 7th month. And now over in verse 18 of Nehemiah 8, it says, "And day by day, from the first day to the last day, he read from the book of the law of Elohim. They kept the feast 7 days, and on the 8th day there was a solemn assembly according to the rule." So here we have the reading of the law for 7 days, the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacle, not including the last great day, which is a feast in its own right, as we know. If you would now turn over to Esther, the book of Esther, chapter 3, verses 5 through 11. It says, "And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down to pay homage to him, Haman was filled with fury, but he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. So as they had made known to him the people of Mordecai, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai, throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, or that is, they cast lots before Haman day after day, and they cast it month after month till the 12th month, which is the month Adar. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, 'There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people. They do not keep the king's laws, so that it is not to the king's profit to tolerate them. If it please the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who have charge of the king's business, that they may put it into the king's treasuries. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money is given you, the people also, to do with them is good to you. So here we have in the first month, Haman trying to, or basically getting the king to agree to exterminate the Jews. So turning over now to Psalm 81, verses 1 through 4. Psalm 81, verses 1 through 4. It says, to the choir master, according to the Gittith of Asaph, sing aloud to Elohim our strength. Shout for joy to the Elohim of Jacob. Raise a song, sound the tambourine, the sweet lyre and the harp. Blow the trumpet at the new moon, at the full moon on our feast day, for it is a statute for Israel, the rule of Elohim, the rule of the Elohim of Jacob. So here we have obviously the blowing of the trumpet on the Day of Trumpets, and the 15th day of the month, which is the full moon, which is the feast day, the first day of Tabernacles. And now turning over into Isaiah chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. Isaiah 1, 12 through 15. It says, when you come to appear before me, who has required of you this trampling of my courts? Bring no more vain offerings. Incense is an abomination to me. New moon and Sabbath and the calling of convocations. And this is the real, this struck me. It says, I cannot endure iniquity and solemn assembly. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They have become a burden to me. I am weary of bearing them. When you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. He says here, I cannot endure iniquity and solemn assembly. The new moon is a solemn assembly, and he could not endure the mixing of their nonsense with his sacred or solemn assembly of the new moon. The new moon and the Sabbath. These days are solemn assemblies. That's how I read this. And I thought that was very significant. Looking now at Isaiah 66, verse 22 through 24. Isaiah 66, 22 through 24 says, for as the new heavens and the new earth that I make shall remain before me, says Yehovah, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yehovah, and they shall go out and look on the dead bodies of the men who have rebelled against me, for their worms shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. So this is very significant. Sabbath to Sabbath, new moon to new moon, Sabbath to Sabbath. All people will be coming and will come and worship before Yehovah, just as we're doing today. Ezekiel 26, verses 1 through 3. Ezekiel 26, verses 1 through 3 says, in the 11th year, on the first day of the month, the word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, because Tyre said concerning Jerusalem, aha, the gate of the peoples is broken, it has swung open to me, I shall be replenished, now that she is laid waste. Therefore, thus says Yehovah, behold, I am against you, O Tyre, and will bring up many nations against you, as the sea brings up its waves. So here we have a revelation being made to Ezekiel, on the first day of the month, the new moon. Ezekiel 29, 17 through 21. So this was the 11th year. So you have 16 years later in the 27th year. So verses 17 through 21 says, in the 27th year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made his army labor hard against Tyre. Every head was made bald, and every shoulder was rubbed bare. Yet neither he nor his army got anything from Tyre to pay for the labor that he had performed against her. Therefore, thus says Adonai El, or I'm not sure what the verse there is, or what the name there is. Hold on one second. Oh, it's Adonai Yehovah. So that's the term used there, Adonai Yehovah. So thus says Adonai Yehovah, behold, I will give the land of Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he shall carry off its wealth and despoil it and plunder it. And it shall be the wages for his army. I have given him the land of Egypt as his payment for which he labored, because they worked for me, declares Adonai Yehovah. On that day I will cause a horn to spring up for the house of Israel, and I will open your lips and among them. Then they will know that I am Yehovah. So another significant prophecy being revealed to Ezekiel on the new moon. Now here we go back. So in Ezekiel 31, 1 through 3, it goes back to the 11th year, which is the same one mentioned in Ezekiel 26. So Ezekiel 31, verses 1 through 3 says, in the 11th year, in the 3rd month, on the 1st day of the month, the word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his multitude, whom are you like in your greatness? Behold, Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches and forest shade, and of towering height, its top among the clouds. So here we have again a prophecy coming into Ezekiel on the new moon. And again in 32, Ezekiel 32, 1 through 3, says, in the 12th year, in the 12th month, on the 1st day of the month, the word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, raise a lamentation over Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, you consider yourself a lion of the nations, but you are like a dragon in the seas. You burst forth in your rivers, trouble the waters with your feet, and foul their rivers. Thus says Adonai Yehovah, I will throw my net over you with a host of many peoples, and they will haul you up in my dragnet. Again, another prophecy coming to Ezekiel on the new moon. It was a day of visitation. It was a day that Yehovah chose to reveal these things to Ezekiel. Turn over now to chapter 45 of Ezekiel. We'll read verses 18 through 20. Starting in verse 18, it says, thus says Adonai Yehovah, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall take a bull from the herd without blemish and purify the sanctuary. The priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering and put it on the doorposts of the temple, the 4 corners of the ledge of the altar, and the post of the gate of the inner court. You shall do the same on the 7th day of the month for anyone who has sinned through error and ignorance. So shall you make atonement for the temple. Now this was, again, on the 1st day of the 1st month. So this was the new year. And then it goes into the 7th, where we have the sanctification of the sinful and erroneous for those that sin in error and ignorance. So now looking at Ezekiel 46, verses 1 through 7. Ezekiel 46, verses 1 through 7. It says, thus says Adonai Yehovah, the gate of the inner court that faces east shall be shut on the 6 working days. So it's very specific here, the 6 working days. But on the Sabbath day it shall be opened, and on the day of the new moon it shall be opened. So there's a distinction between the 6 working days and the 2 days of being the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, and the new moon that happens on a monthly basis. These 2 days were different. It says, the prince shall enter by the vestibule of the gate from outside and shall take his stand by the post of the gate. The priest shall offer his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go out, but the gate shall not be shut until evening. The people of the land shall bow down at the entrance of that gate before Yehovah on the Sabbath and on the new moons. They were worshiping on these days, as they were commanded. The burnt offering that the prince offers to Yehovah on the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish, a ram without blemish, and grain offering with a ram shall be an ephah, and the grain offering of the lamb shall be as much as he is able, together with a hin of oil to each ephah. On the day of the new moon he shall offer a bull from the herd without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram, which shall be without blemish. As a grain offering he shall provide an ephah with the bull, and an ephah with the ram, and with the lambs as much as he is able, together with a hin of oil to each ephah. So here we see a bull. We see more offerings on the new moon than we do on the Sabbath. So again, when you read through these, it seems very apparent to me that the new moon is equated with the Sabbath, at least in terms of being a day of solemn assembly, a day of worship, and in greater significance in that there are more offerings made on that day. Turn over now to Hosea chapter 5, verses 7 through 15. Hosea 5, 7 through 15. It says, "They have dealt faithlessly with Yehovah, for they have borne alien children. Now the new moon shall devour them with their fields. Blow the horn in Gibeah, the trumpet in Ramah. Sound the alarm at Beth-aven. We follow you, O Benjamin. Ephraim shall become a desolation in the day of punishment. Among the tribes of Israel I make known what is sure. The princes of Judah have become like those who move the landmark." So, moving somebody's property marker. "Upon them I will pour out my wrath like water. Ephraim is oppressed, crushed in judgment, because he was determined to go after filth." He was determined. He had his mind set on things that are contrary to Yehovah. "But I am like a moth to Ephraim, and like dry rot to the house of Judah. When Ephraim saw his sickness, and Judah his wound, then Ephraim went to Assyria and sent to the great king. But he is not able to cure you or heal your wound. For I will be a lion to Ephraim, and like a young lion to the house of Judah. I, even I, will tear and go away. I will carry off, and no one shall rescue. I will return again to my place, until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face, and in their distress earnestly seek me." So here we have another reference to the new moon. It says, "And the new moon shall devour them with their fields," right? So the prophecy is related to the new moon, and the new moon is used to time your plantings and that kind of thing. And I think this is a reference to the fact that their crops are not going to be yielding any fruit. And as the new moon comes, it just yields nothing. So it would be interesting to do a little more study on this verse to really gather the meaning behind that. But that's what I derive from it at this time. And then in Amos 8, verses 1 through 14. Richard read some of this earlier, but we'll go through it again. Amos 8, verses 1 through 14, which is essentially the whole chapter. It says, "This is what Adonai Yehovah showed me. Behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. Then Yehovah said to me, the end has come upon my people Israel. I will never again pass by them. The songs of the temple shall become wailings in that day, declares Adonai Yehovah. So many dead bodies, they are thrown everywhere. Silence. Hear this, you who trample on the needy and bring the poor to the land to an end, saying, when will the new moon be over, that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath, that we may offer wheat for sale, that we may make the ephah small and the shekel great, and deal deceitfully with false balances, that we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, and sell the chaff of the wheat. Yehovah has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds. Shall not the land tremble on this account, and everyone mourn who dwells in it, and all of it rise like the Nile, and be tossed about and sink again like the Nile of Egypt? And on that day, declares Adonai Yehovah, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight. I will turn your feasts into mourning and all your songs into lamentation. I will bring sackcloth on every waist and baldness on every head. I will make it like the morning for an only son, and the end of it like a bitter day. Behold, the days are coming, declares Adonai Yehovah, when I will send a famine on the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but a hearing of the words of Yehovah. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north to east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yehovah, but they shall not find it. In that day the lovely virgins and the young men shall faint for thirst. Those who swear by the guilt of Samaria and say, as your God lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives, they shall fall and never rise again. So, the reference here to the new moon is equated to the Sabbath in terms of commerce. They're saying, when will the new moon be over that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath that we may offer wheat for sale, is a reference to commerce. Both of these days are thrown in there. And the inference here is that is contrary to Yehovah's way, which is to keep these days as a solemn assembly, not engaging in commerce. They're kept, we don't like to use the term Sabbaths, but they are kept as a solemn assembly. So turning over now to Haggai, chapter 1. Again, I think we'll read the whole chapter, verses 1 through 15. I think that's the whole chapter, but I'm not positive. Haggai 1 through 15 says, in the second year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, on the first day of the month, so this is new moon, the word of Yehovah came by the hand of Haggai the prophet to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Thus says Yehovah of hosts, these people say, the time has not yet come to rebuild the house of Yehovah. Then the word of Yehovah came to the hand of Haggai the prophet. Is it a time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses, while this house lies in ruins? Now therefore, thus says Yehovah of hosts, consider your ways. You have sown much and harvested little. You eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You clothe yourselves, but no one is warm. And he who earns wages does so to put them into a bag with holes. Thus says Yehovah of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the hills and bring wood and build the house, that I may take pleasure in it, and that I may be glorified, says Yehovah. You looked for much, and behold, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I blew it away. Why? Declares Yehovah of hosts, because of my house that lies in ruins. While each of you busies himself with his own house, therefore the heavens above you have withheld the dew, and the earth has withheld its produce. And I have called for a drought on the land and the hills, on the grain, the new wine, the oil, and what the ground brings forth, on man and beast, and on all their labors. Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of Yehovah their Elohim, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as Yehovah their Elohim had sent him. And the people feared Yehovah. Then Haggai, the messenger of Yehovah, spoke to the people with Yehovah's message. I am with you, declares Yehovah. And Yehovah stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and worked on the house of Yehovah of hosts, their Elohim. And on the 24th day of the month, in the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, the king. So here again we see significance on the new moon. All of this was revealed to Haggai on the new moon. And now the last verse we'll read is in Colossians in the New Testament, Colossians 2, verses 16 through 19. Colossians 2, 16 through 19, it says, therefore, let no one pass judgment on you in question of food and drink, or with regard to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. Let no one disqualify you, insisting on asceticism and worship of angels, going on in detail about visions, puffed up without reason by his sensuous mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom the whole body, nourished and knit together through its joints and ligaments, grows with a growth that is from God. So here we see the New Testament church being admonished to not let anyone pass judgment on them in regard to food and drink. So, we keep the food laws of the Old Testament, so no one can judge us or condemn us for doing that. Or with regard to the festivals and new moons or Sabbaths. We keep all of the festivals, we keep the new moons, and we keep the Sabbath. These are all days of worship, as we saw earlier. So I think I'm fairly certain that we caught most of the verses in regard to the new moon throughout the Old and New Testament. So if there are others, I'd be more than happy to receive those from you and add them to the study. But in going through this, it appears to me that keeping the new moon as a holy day is what was commanded. It's what will happen in the future, and it's what we should be doing today. The new moon appears to be, in the conjunction. Obviously, you have to look at historical context to determine exactly what was being done. But I hope this study was useful, and that's the end of the message for today. Thank you.
All right, well, hopefully that was at least a good refresher for those of you that have heard it, and for those of you that haven't, hopefully you found it educational and provide food for thought in regard to the new moon and the fact that we keep it as a holy day set aside. There are many different approaches or understandings of the new moon, and of course the calendar has been a major point of contention within the churches of God and other organizations. So each of us have an obligation to study it out for ourselves and prove to ourselves whether or not we should be keeping the new moon. I myself feel that it is, and have been led to understand anyway through my own studies, that it is a holy day to be set aside. And it seemed logical and makes sense that Yehovah would set it aside as a holy day to be, to keep his calendar intact and the understanding of his calendar intact. We adhere to a lunisolar calendar, which requires both the sun and the moon. And there are different calendars out there that many people use. This is the one that the Assembly of Eloah uses, the one that seems to make the most sense to me. And historically, I think it was used. It's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that man can calculate when the next conjunction of the new moon is. We observe it based on Jerusalem time, on the principle that the law shall go forth out of Jerusalem. So there are folks that disagree with that as well and feel like it should be a local observance. But if you have a local observance, there is a chance that people will be keeping Feast of Tabernacles and other days that are calculated from the new moon at different times, which can be a problem if you're not showing up on the Day of Atonement on the proper day. You're not really observing the day that he set aside. So anyway, it's the study. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. If you have any questions or comments, we will be willing to discuss them in the open discussion. coming up. So if you'll please stand and open your hymnals to page 101, we'll sing our final hymn for this new moon service, which comes from Psalm 135, titled Praise Yah's Name, after which I'd like to call Jerry Shaleski to the mic for the closing prayer. So page 101, Praise Yah's Name. Okay, if you'll please remain standing, we'll now turn the mic over to Jerry Shaleski to close in prayer. Jerry, over to you.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
It was a beautiful hymn, Dave, for closing. Our Father, Most High God, Jehovah of hosts, we give you the greatest thanks and appreciation for calling us out of this world, for opening our eyes to the importance of obeying your laws and commandments, of keeping the days you set aside for us to come before your presence with songs and psalms of praise to you. We pray to you, Father, for help in walking the straight and narrow path. Guide us with your Spirit for as long as there is life in us. It is a great joy to be part of your creation, to know your will be done in the earth as it is in heaven. We call on your name, Father, this new moon day. We bless you, we magnify you, and worship you, and pray you would put your laws and commandments in each and every one of our hearts. We pray that our leaders would come to understand we are to have no other gods before you and to obey your commandments. We ask for your dismissal, Father, and pray before you in the name of your beloved Son, Yeshua the Christ. Amen.